you're gross. Yeah, I'm looking at you. Oh no. Bo. Oh my god, get away. Oh no! Yes, she got me. Hello and welcome to Brimwood Farm. As you can see, we're up at the farmland. We're going to go and do a little bit of work today, and everything has gone mad. We're in May, so everything has whooshed up, and it's kind of a double-edged sword because everything grows magnificently, but because we're only here for once a month, if that, nature seems to undo your hard work. So it can seem a little bit overwhelming at this time of year. Obviously, if we were here every day, if we lived on site, if we had loads of help, we would get stuff done and then we'd be able to keep and maintain it. But as it is, it's just sod and I. And so trying to keep stuff maintained and start projects and get them going how we want them to go can be pretty difficult. So when I first got up here and I saw the height at which many of the weeds had grown to, I did feel a little bit defeated, if I'm honest. However, we're going to head up to the pond project. I've had a quick scout around already, and the pond's doing quite well. So I wanted to show you guys how it's coming along. We'll do a little bit of cutting, and also we want to have a little bit of talk about another project that's coming up using live willow. Now, my tenant farmer has actually topped two of the fields, and whether he's turning it into grass or hay, I don't know. But this field he's left, and it's absolutely beautiful. As you can see, all these beautiful buttercups, and then you've got taller grasses. It's so nice. There's a bit of a muddy dog. So we'll walk up towards the pond as we do on numerous occasions. And I'm really happy with the way the pond is coming forwards. It's been very dry this year. We haven't had a vast amount of rainfall, particularly over the winter, which would have filled the pond up to brimming point, and unfortunately that never happened. So as you saw in previous videos, we got the frog spawn, but the water is draining away really quickly, which worries me a little bit, whether it's going to dry out completely. We have the ditches is dry, the pond in the pit there is no pond, and the other thing is plants that we put up here that require establishing and watering, we just can't do because they will die. And so here we are, here's our patches of stuff that we've cut down before. And actually, if you look in here, not all of our plants have survived, but some of them have established themselves now. So you can see, putting on new growth, quite a few have died. I'm trying to find a dead one. Maybe they've just been overtaken by everything else. I can't find any dead ones. There are definitely dead ones though. There's definitely ones that haven't made it. Surprisingly, the foxgloves, which are the least established, are actually all thriving. I don't think any have died at all. So they should flower next year and look fabulous. You can see here one of these, or even this one. It could do with the water. I have got the watering can with me. So I'll give that a little bit of a water later and just check that it's settling in. But the main thing we're here to see, obviously, is the pond. That's behind me here, and although the water level is quite low, you can see it's right back here. The plants that we put in last year, so last year my patrons actually paid for the planting, and they've actually done well. So there's our yellow flag iris, very nicely established now. It hasn't got any flowers on, but it's got several lots of foliage coming up. Our water forget-me-not as you can see down here, has done beautifully. It's really starting to spread, as is the water mint. This is all water mint. It's done really, really well. And then our water plantain is down here. So this is our water plantain. So they have been overtaken by non-bog plants that have just come in from the meadow, which we could probably do with cutting back a bit. And you can see there's all sorts coming across. And you can also see how much stuff is growing. So this was actually cut a couple of weeks ago. It's already come back massively. Now, one thing that you may remember as well is this tree. So we cut this tree probably only last year. So all of this growth is 1 year's growth. Now this is a willow. I'm not entirely sure what type of willow. I think it might be white willow. Although underneath you can see it's not as white as it was previously. It may be goat willow. I'm not entirely sure of the willow type it is. There's a little bee here. Hello, mister. Welcome to the farm. But now I've realised this is willow, and I mean, just look at it. It's like a blooming forest in there, like a bamboo forest. So we are going to be building a living willow dome by the nuttery. So you'll walk through the willow dome to get into the nuttery, and I want to have a seat in the willow dome as well, so that you can collect your nuts and you can sit on the seat and you can crack them, and you know that probably won't ever happen, but it's nice to think of it happening in the future, and especially when we are here and we're thinking of running experience days and volunteering and stuff. It'd be nice for everybody to kind of group into the living willow dome, especially if it starts raining or whatever. So this actually is ideal for pruning and for taking cuttings from. So I'm going to take a load of willow whip cuttings. Now I can't shove them straight into the ground because, as I said previously, we're not here to water them constantly. So I'm going to have to collect these willow whips, take them home, root them at home, and then come back and plant them in. But I'm literally just going to cut them down the bottom, cut them all off. I'll show you what I'm doing, and then I'll show you the site of the willow dome. I'm actually quite shocked as to how much willow there is. So initially, well, I'm just going to take it all off. I'm going to cut it down to appropriate size cuttings afterwards. I always try and cut just below a bud, but as I say, I will be recutting them at a later point. Oh, I seem to have picked up the bluntest succotaurs I have. And the thing with willow is this is all going to regrow anyway, so this is going to be probably a yearly thing because it's just going to go mad. When I first cut this, I didn't realise it was actually willow. And it's lucky really, because I was wondering about where to get willow whips from, and then actually I have them on my own land, which is rather marvellous. So I'm going to cut all of this section back, and then we'll take a look at the cuttings themselves. So here are our willow whips, and you can see that for the most part they're actually perfect. If I put one on its own, you've got this long stem, and then you've got your leaf at the end, hence why it's called a whip. So there are a couple of ways of planting a living willow structure. The first and the most easiest is literally just to take these whips and just plunge them into the soil and just keep them well watered until they start establishing themselves. Willow is so easy at putting out, so good at putting out roots, that actually, for the most part, as long as you keep it moist and you keep them into the ground, they will do it by themselves. However, again, because we're not here and we're not to do that, I'm going to have to establish cuttings elsewhere, and to do that, that means I am going to have to cut these. It would be great just to shove them into the ground and just be here every single day to water them and keep them this size to establish it more quickly. But what I'm actually going to have to do is I'm going to have to do it your old-fashioned cutting way. So, as you will remember from many cutting videos, just taking a section of stem, probably 6 to 10 inches long, cutting under a leaf node, taking off your side shoots, plunging it into the ground, and then letting the roots establish it. That way, however, I've got so many pieces of cutting material here, I'll get loads and loads of cuttings from it. Actually, even though I'm saying that, not that I need to worry, because every single stem over there is a potential cutting. But I'm going to head back to the site where we're going to do the willow dome so you can see what I'm actually talking about. And here we are, 2 fields and driveway later. Got all the willow, so let's just drop that on the floor. And here we are, back at the lookout. And you can see how much it's grown, so that's just harking back to my kind of slight feelings of overwhelmment that, you know, we constantly strim this back and it just grows because it's nature. But here is where the willow dome is going to go. I know, how on earth is it going to go there? But the idea will be buddleia hedge, willow dome, buddleia hedge, and then through the willow dome will be the nuttery on the other side. I've also decided I want to do a little merino cherry orchard as well, and that'll be where our hens sort of scratch around. So I'm going to take all those cuttings, and then again, because we're up at the farm, I don't want those cuttings to dry out, so I'm going to take the cuttings and then I'm going to put them in a plastic bag immediately to keep them nice and moist for when we get home, and I can pop them all up and get them going. So I went and cut some more willow just to kind of show you what I mean by this willow dome, and I've put all of these pieces in. Now it's important to remember that the majority of these, if not all, will die because I'm not here to water them, but they did need to be cut down anyway. But you can see I've literally just put them into the ground in the shape of a circle. Let's come back out. This will be my entrance. Actually, let's line ourselves up. Here's my entrance, my exit's the other side, and then these are the circle. What will happen is, when they take and when I replace them with the proper cuttings, they'll all shoot upwards, and then we'll bind them together at the top, and then we'll put more in the bottom, and they'll curl round, and they'll be widened to go around the edges. And we'll have our living willow dome, which will lead into the nuttery, but currently leads into a bramble bush.